Hello, my name's Dave Jevans. In 2005, I had an idea about how to protect enterprises, customers, and government agencies from malicious attacks on the internet by using hardware devices to protect passwords, authentication keys, and web browsing from malware. I was fortunate enough to receive funding from the Department of Homeland Security to perform our initial research, which took us about a year and a half to 2 years to get our first prototype out. Once we had our first prototype, we knew that this had commercial potential, not only in the government space, but in enterprise and even consumer. Because we had the prototype that was functioning, that had been the subject of many research reports and much investigation, we had the technology that proved to investors that this was something that was going to be viable and could be built. We then progressed into the technology transition phase. This is where we went out and raised venture capital investment from Silicon Valley primary investors and were able to bring the product into the market. We launched IronKey in 2007 at the end of the year. In the first year, we sold over $10 million of the product into enterprise and government. And to date, we've sold millions of the devices with online services to protect companies all around the world. To me, transitioning technology from research into product is particularly challenging because it's not about the technology or the fit, it's really about the business and being able to fund it to bring those products to market, to put together a sales team, to put together a marketing team, to put together a support team, and do it all in a time frame and under very tight budget constraints. The differences between transitioning to government and private industry, in my experience, is government, you've got a very small set of customers, but they're dedicated. They can be very large deployments. There tends to be a lot of customization in those. If you're going to take technology and move it into private industry, investors want to see a much broader market than just government. So you've got to be able to target, for example, financial services, healthcare, education, potentially consumer. This is where you find a big difference in who wants to invest, how much they'll invest, and what stage of the company they're going to invest in. When transitioning technology, it's important to look at those markets. It's not good enough to have a great piece of technology. In my case, it was security technology with the IronKey. That's not enough. You've got to have identifiable markets, ways to build the product if it's hardware, expertise in manufacturing those products. They could be computer servers, firewalls, that type of technology. You've got to have the sales and marketing expertise. You've got to be able to build a team. For researchers regarding technology transition, I urge you to really understand the markets that you would go after with the technology, and also understand, is this an ingredient for a larger company to potentially integrate into their products, or is it a fully standalone company that can create real value and stand alone amongst competitors? Researchers also need to understand the importance of team, because the technology does not carry the day. It does not always win. Unless you have a very quick exit where you built the greatest new thing, security technology, for example, and you're acquired by a bigger company right away, other than that, you've really got to build team, sales, marketing. If you're a great researcher, you may or you may not end up being the greatest CEO. CEOs need to know how to raise money. They need to know how to speak to investors, manage boards of directors, deal with all the legal challenges that come with running a business in transition from research into product. For the government, I'd recommend, to help transition technologies, a couple of things. First is there should be a venture capital fund associated with research amounts of money, research pools of cash. There needs to be venture funds as well to help transition. Today, in my experience, it's been get the research done and then you're on your own. There's no money from the government to help move those companies into transition. They may require $1, $2, or $3 million to take that from a research idea, a prototype, a proof of concept, and bring it to initial market. Once it's in initial market, investors will move to it if there's customer traction. Another thing that government can do to help technology transition is to have a more formalized program of introducing these technologies to agencies across the country. Today, there is not such a program. It's certainly not widespread. It'd be great if there were CTOs, CIOs, heads of technology, heads of security that were connected to these government programs, so once or twice a year you could be introduced to them once you're in that transition period, and you'd have an ability to find heroes, sponsors, supporters of your technology who love it, who will give you guidance on how to bring it to the broader market out of the research phase. Those are things that government can do. The cybersecurity research community, I would say, has been moderately successful in transitioning research into successful companies. There have been successes like mine own with IronKey, where we created a very successful company, which was eventually sold to a large public company and protects government agencies, enterprises, and consumers. There have been examples in firewalls and intrusion detection, some of the SCADA technology that's coming out for security. But I would say that, in my opinion, more than half of research projects do not successfully transition. Agencies have helped in the transition process by having CIOs available who can look at these technologies, evaluate them, get trials going. And trials, while not as good as sales, they do help in the investment process. When you can call up a CIO at a major agency and they will talk to investors and talk about the potential for the technology, talk about the team, talk about the need, talk about how it might be deployed in their agency. At IronKey, what got us over the hump was having that first prototype that we built for Homeland Security, the rigor that Homeland Security put in their reporting requirements, in the deliverables. We did very extensive research and knew end to end what the solution was. That was so important to get us over that hump into the first venture funding round. Once we had that venture funding, it was so much more easy to attract the talent into the company, to build the initial sales organization, to work with value-added resellers in security and enterprise technology, and really get to build some momentum which attracted future investors, allowed us to scale the company, and eventually have a nice successful exit when we sold the IronKey company. IronKey is still very much in business. It's a division of iMation, a $1 billion a year company, and continues to provide innovative products in security. I'm Dave Jevans. I invite you to check out my latest startup, Marble Security, where we're providing mobile threat intelligence and defense.